kralot, you read it a little bit faster, a little bit lower.
I got it.
That's
Okay,
it.
because
And who's the person that gets the bracha? The actual bracha.
Usually the Rav or the person who's running the minyan or the gabbai.
Okay, so there's a Shabbat Chatan going to be taking place. They're making a Minyan, and I'm going to be reading that in that specific place. Do
Okay.
I take it or just
The kralot or the brachot?
meaning the actual bracha of the fifth
I
aliyah?
think anybody should, whatever. Auction it off.
Not auction. They're not gonna- yeah, whatever. They're doing something.
Just that aliyah.
Buy for somebody else.
Doesn't make a difference. No nafkamina. Are we ready to start?
Yeah.
All right, let's start.
I'm ready.
Parashat Behar, Parashat Behukotai. 2 parashiyot this week. Parashat Behar actually starts with the mitzvah of Shemitah. Shesh shanim tizra sadecha ve'asafta et tevuata. Uvashana shevi'it tishmetena untashta. What is this? 6 years we have a mitzvah to work the land. A person, contrary to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which we just had Lag BaOmer, who held that a person is supposed to learn Torah all day and all night, and to the point that he saw one Jew going ahead and working, and he says, what's going on? How come he's working? How can he take from the precious world that we have and spend his time on work? And he started burning, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu was clearly not happy with that because the system was not that way. The system is to go and to have people working and people parnasa and to do that work. Not necessarily everybody, right? There's a percentage of Am Yisrael, Toratam Umanutam. There's a percentage of Am Yisrael that gets to learn Torah all day and all night, and that is their job, like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai did for his personal self. And those exceptional cases, but in the general population of Am Yisrael, the mitzvah is to go into work. So you work the land. It takes a long time. It's not a quick thing to work the land. It's especially what it used to be back then. Yeah, to have days of plowing, days of planting, days of watering, days of harvesting, days of going ahead and separating, days of winnowing, all the milachot that pertain to the land. So 6 years you work the land, but what do you do on the 7th year? The 7th year you rest. You have a shemitah. Everybody takes off. And we know back in the Gemara's times, agriculture was 90% of the economy. Almost everybody was in farming. It's not like today, maybe 5% of the jobs in the industry is agriculture, because you have machines that do everything. Today they invented these machines that are able to do the whole process of the 30 milachot in one shot. And therefore you don't need that many people working. You still need people working, but not to the same level as it used to be back then. So you imagine it was basically a Shabbaton, a whole year Shabbaton, where everybody was simply off. You had a whole year, it was like COVID for a whole year. Remember COVID? Everybody was off from work and basically going crazy at home. So that's what it would be the Shemitah, except Baruch Hashem, we have a Torah that takes care of us. So, is what?
It's about to be 7 years.
It's almost a Shemitah year, yeah, it's almost a Shemitah year. So the question is as follows. We know that during these weeks we read Pirkei Avot. And Pirkei Avot, it tells us something interesting. It says that Aseh Toratecha Keva, that a person has a mitzvah, an obligation, to make the Torah keva. What does the word keva mean? It means kavua, it means ikar. Like if I have, for example, I went ahead and I bought myself a salad. And in the salad, there's a lot of lettuce, there's a lot of tomatoes, but it also has a few raisins. And so what would I make a barcha? The lettuce is ha'adama. The raisins is ha'etz. Do I say I make a bracha on the raisins? No, obviously not. Why? Because it's secondary. Well, who told you it's secondary? Because it's a lot less. There's ikar, there's tafel. So if the Torah says, Aseh Toratecha ikar, or Aseh Toratecha keva, is a bit of a question one could ask. What's going on? Most of the people in Am Yisrael that are Yirei Shamayim, God-fearing and everything, most of their time they're spending working. Everybody here that has to work in general, unless they're self-employed, they're working 9 to 5 jobs, sometimes even 9 to 6, 9 to 7. You're working a whole part of the day. So even if someone spends every single night learning, and he takes 2 hours of his night, 3 hours of his night, let's say, a good tzaddik, he takes a good chunk of his night and he spends learning Torah. Chazak u'baruch. But wait a second, that's still secondary. That's not ikar, that's tafel. So there's a question to be asked here. How do we understand the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says, Aseh Toratecha Keva Umelachtecha Arai, that the work that you do is supposed to be secondary to the learning that you do. But at the same time, how do we fit that in with the fact that we're working so much unless a person's learning in yeshiva? Is that what the Mishnah trying to tell us? That everybody has to learn in yeshiva and most of their day they have to be learning Torah and maybe 1 hour a day or 2 hours a day are supposed to be working? It doesn't seem to be the case, and certainly it's not something that the Gedolei Ador are telling everybody that they have to do. So what's happening over here? So to understand this, once again, there's a Sfat Emet, very important Sfat Emet. He explains what's the whole mitzvah of Shemitah, that we say you have to count the years. Why is there a mitzvah? The Torah says, V'safarta lecha sheva shabbetot shanim. You have to count the years. This is the 4th year to the Shemitah. This is the 5th year. Oh, it's the 7th year. And then after you finish one cycle, now you're still counting. Why? Because you have to count till the Yovel. You have 7 years, which is the cycle of the Shemitah. And then you have 7 times the 7 years, which is 49 years. And you're counting all 49 years because the 50th year is going to be the year of the Yovel. All the slaves go free, and it's a super Shemitah. It's like a super Shabbaton, where you have an entire year where all of Am Yisrael is off. And nobody is working, and it's be'emet like they treat it like mamash, like Rosh Hashanah. It's considered to be a very, very holy year in the Jewish calendar. And there's a mitzvah to count up to the Yovel and to count up to the Shemitah. What is the purpose of this mitzvah? So comes along the Sfat Emet and he says something brilliant. He says, the whole concept of counting is the idea of all of what I'm doing until that point is transitory, is to get to that conclusion. So when a person is working 6 years and he's counting those years, the 7th year will be in another 3 years. The 7th year will be in another 2 years. Another year. He's counting. What is he saying? That my work now is for the purpose of being able to get to that Shemitah. So if his mindset is on the Shemitah and the 50th year, his mindset is on the Yovel, so all of those years are considered to be tafel to that ikar, meaning he has now shown what is primary and what is secondary in his mind. And therefore, for all those years themselves, it's as if he went ahead and he sat and he learned Torah and he took care of the spirituality. So what we see over here is not about hours. The Torah doesn't go based on hours. This person learned, he learned 5 hours every single day. He learned 10 hours every single day. The Torah is not saying to do, the primary is the number of hours you spend. The mindset of a person makes something right. If I'm counting to that, I'm waiting, I have a day. I know my day starts, I have to wake up early, I have to go immediately to work. My day starts 8 o'clock. I'm already at work and I'm already doing what I have to do, but my yearning, my heart is waiting for that 6 p.m. where I could run to pray Mincha Arvit, where I could sit in the shiur, where I could hear Divrei Torah, and that's where I'm counting the hours to get to that point in time. That's Aseh Toratecha Keva. That man has a Torah of Keva, but he's only learning 1 hour a day. He's only learning turn out, but that's Keva, because he's looking forward to that. As opposed to the other person, might be learning 4 hours, but he's learning like this. Oh, wow. What interesting. Trump said that. Unbelievable. No, I got to start learning. I got to continue learning. And then the next thing, he's constantly looking to see, well, I have to take care of that. Well, we got some work. He's thinking about work when he's learning. That means that what's the keva? His work, not his Torah. The opposite, if he's thinking about learning when he's at work, I can't wait to go ahead and learn. I can't wait to do. So then all of a sudden it changes the whole dynamic. There was an incredible story. This is a story that's a diamond. What happened? There was a person who was very, very tsanua, there's some people in the world that their innocence just shines through. It's just, you see the tamimut, the beauty of keeping the Torah on just not like profound, deep understanding, but simple. The Rav says, Hashem says, the Torah says, I don't ask questions, I don't have chokhmot, I don't go ahead with all the tricks and the kunsim and all the combinations. It's just an innocent person that follows the Torah because he knows it's the emet, it's the truth. So there was a person, he heard a shiur from the Rav. The Rav spoke about the importance and how valuable is to work, because a person is able to support his children. He's supposed to make money. He should make money. So mitzvah, make money, so that way he could have children that learn in yeshiva. That he could have hatanim, his daughters were married people, it costs money. It's not free for people to learn in yeshiva. Someone needs to support them. So this job, he works, he makes money so that he's able to support his son-in-laws. So he's able to support his children. A person who has that kavanah is incredible. He's doing such a great mitzvah. So this man understood that although most of his time was spent working, he was doing it very happily. He was very happy because the Rav said that if I work and I make money and I'm using it for my children, for their Torah, then I'm making good usage of it and all of my work turns into Kedusha. And he was a very happy man with what he was doing. The Rav started noticing something about this fellow. What happened? People started telling him, and then he thought it was not true, but then it ended up being confirmed. The man did something bizarre. In the middle of the day, where everybody else's store is extremely busy, like the busiest time in the day, this man would simply close shop. He would close the store, like rush hours, the time where the business is the strongest. He would close the doors. He would walk out and leave. And the Rav was very curious. What do you mean, he closes the store in the middle of the day? Yeah, he closes it and then he comes back a few hours later. I remember one time I was going to a certain store and it was also like during the day, and all of a sudden I'm about to walk into the store, I see a sign, out for lunch. I was like, who does that these days? Who closes their store in the middle of the day and writes out for lunch? I was so surprised. But this is mamash what this man did. It's mamash what he did. The Rav was a little suspicious. He says, what's going on over here? Where is he going? Wait a minute, in the middle of the day. You know, it's chashud. What's he already doing every single day in the middle of the day? First, he didn't want to believe it. Tov, he said, I want to look into this. He looked into it. He sent a detective there. The man would close the store, and a few doors down, there was a Bet Midrash. He would walk into the Bet Midrash, and he would sit, and he would open up a Gemara, and he would learn with such devotion, with such passion, he would sit and learn. And then after 45 minutes, an hour, he closed the Gemara, go back to the store, open it again. That was a daily thing that he would do. So the Rav was very surprised. So the Rav comes over to him one day. He says, listen, you close your store every day? And he's like, well, how did the Rav know? No, I looked into it. I see that you're closing your store. So, what is this that you're doing, closing your store? What's going on over here? Why are you closing your store in the middle of the day? He says, Arav, a few months ago you told us about the great olam haba that a person has when he works. He said, I know, that's what I'm asking you. He says, such a olam haba, your working is like learning Torah, because you're supporting your children, you're supporting your son-in-laws. He says, Ken Arav, but I have to tell you, he said with such a sweetness, he said, Harav, how much can a person focus on olam haba, olam haba, olam haba? I also need a little bit of olam hazeh. I need some of this world. There's no pleasure in the world like the learning of Torah. So, Arav, you can't just live off olam haba. You also have to live off olam hazeh, this world. So I go every single day 45 minutes to get the sweetness of the Torah back in the system so that I can go ahead and again go back to focus on my olam haba in working and things. Look at that, beautiful. That's called Torah Techakeva. That's Torah Techakeva. Here's this person, and he says, what do you mean? I'm just going to focus always on Olam Haba. I need Olam Hazeh. His Torah, his learning is the pleasure of this world. It's the greatest ta'anug there ever is. And that's the way a person has to train himself. It's not something that happens overnight. You don't just all of a sudden wake up, but you train yourself. How do you train yourself? People sometimes ask, how do I get myself to love learning? So it's really two steps. There's the sur mera, and then there's aseh tov. There's removing yourself from the negatives, and then doing positives. So removing negatives is when a person is too attached to all the physical things, to all the entertainment, to all the technology, to all of this, he's never going to be able to enjoy learning. He's just not going to be able to do it. It's not going to be genuine. He needs to be entertained. He's too attached to these things. He's too stimulated to be able to appreciate the finities of learning and chokhmah and Torah. It's not going to work. So that's number one. You can't have it both ways. It's not happening. His Torah is going to be deficient. Even when he's learning, he's going to be deficient. When he's not able to separate from these things, it doesn't mean forever. He doesn't have to go to a monastery somewhere, chas v'shalom, and just completely itbodedut. But it means to tamp it down. Like a guy who's in social media all the time, he's doing all this stuff, he's always watching videos. There's no room in his heart for Torah. So slowly. Right? So he stops a little bit. That's the sur mera element. You have to tamper that down in steps. You have to detox from a lot of these things. But the aseh tov, but how do you positively focus on enjoying learning. So there's physical actions a person could do. If a person is struggling, let's say he's a little bit lazy, so he runs to the Bet HaKnesset, he runs to the Bet Midrash, he makes sure that he's focused and he's paying attention. It's hard. At first it's hard, but it develops a desire in his heart. When a person has to work hard for something, that's when he starts enjoying things. Like everything else in life, there's nothing you're going to enjoy more than if you had to work for it. And this, Rabotai, I think is a big secret that people say, well, it's hard for me to enjoy it. Yes, that's the point. Because it's hard, you have to jump into it. You have to run. You see yourself, you're walking slowly. You say to yourself, what's going on? How come when there's a wedding and they bring out the food and the buffet over there, like the Syrians do, right? They have the buffets. There's our weddings, they have it differently. But they have the buffets and the brits and the bar mitzvahs and everything else. And the guy is like the first one there. He's zariz. He's up, jumps. He's number one. The kiddush, boop. He takes, he goes, he does. He's moving fast. He doesn't have any laziness. So the answer is when a person does that chitzoniyut, when he says in learning, I have to at least be that level when I do my learning. And I have to open the sefer and I have to bend over and I have to make sure that I'm running to it. It will develop a love and an ahava to it. At first it's going to be hard, and then all of a sudden there's going to be a yearning. That's number one. Number two is working hard. A lot of times when you have to work hard on something, you start to develop a love for it. And as you develop more knowledge, so then mimela, it's going to be more enjoyable. But those are for sure the cases. The people that are in yeshivot know that the things that they remember the most and the things that gave them the most enjoyment are things they had to break their head over. And only then is there going to be a ta'anug. So this is the idea of Aseh Toratecha Keva. The idea of Keva means this is the primary thing in my life. It's not necessarily the number of hours. He only has 1-2 hours. He has to spend time with the children. He has to spend time with his wife. He has to spend time at work, the boss, and everything else that's going on in the crazy world we live in. But the time that he has set for learning, that he's able to learn, it's b'cheshek rav. It's counting the minutes, counting the hours. That's the great thing with how things work. And Be'emet, it connects to Parashat Behukotai, because the Torah says in Parashat Behukotai, Im Behukotai telechu vet mishpatai tishmeru. So there's a question. What's Im Behukotai telechu? Chukot are laws. Mishpatam are laws. So why does the Torah repeat itself? It says, go by my laws, go by my laws. They're the same thing. So Rashi points out, Im bechukotai telechu, im tiyo amelim b'Torah. If a person toils over the Torah, then he has the secret to success. The Torah is very different. We're so used to wisdom that a person acquires wisdom almost like a USB. You put information, download the information. Information, that's all I need. I'm trying to download as much information, whether it's Daf Yomi or whether I'm learning Yalkut Yosef. I'm just simply downloading information. That is not Torah. That is not even close to Torah. That's not what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. He doesn't want downloading information. He wants a person to be toiling in Torah. The Ikar is the toil, and this is why there's an incredible Sefer Hasidim. The Sefer Hasidim lived about almost 1,000 years ago, right? So he writes over there that in the physical sense, purely in the physical sense, there were people in his time that made a new invention. This is invention. A lot of times you're looking up a sefer, so you see Rashi, okay, he quotes the Midrash. So there's a Midrash, there's a Midrash over there. I'll get up and I'll pick it up. And I'll take it, I'll open it up, I'll look at it. And then sometimes, I know there's a bunch of different Sfarim, you need a consistent basis. You need to have a tool next to you if you're learning Halakha, you need to have a Shulchan Aruch, you need to have the Sifrei Kitzur that exists today, you need to have Shach, Taz, all these Sfarim. So you have them all open in front of you. Some Sfarim are a little bit distant, so in his times they came up with a brilliant idea. They said, we're going to make a round table. A table that's round, and instead of you having to get up to the sefer, you put all the sfarim around the table, and then when you need the sefer, you just turn the table, and then the sefer will come to you, and then you have it opened, and then, I need that sefer now, and then he turns it back, and he goes back to that sefer, and that way you're sort of able to save time, maximize your time. Says Sefer Hasidim, nobody should do this. He says, don't do this. Why? You shouldn't set up and create a round table so that you don't have to get it. Opposite, get up and pick up the sefer. Why? Amirut. So that you have toil in Torah, the acquisition of Torah. It is essential to toil in it, and not just to have it spoon-fed. How many times does Rav Chaim Volozhin was the famous student of the Gaon Mivina, and he says, as testimony, he says The Gaon Mivina had angels constantly coming to him. Magidim. They were called Magid, like the Magid Mesharim. And every time they came to him, they said, we have secrets to tell you of Torah. And each and every single time, the Gaon Mivina would say, I don't want to hear secrets of Torah. No, he would reject them. So what do you mean? We're going to learn with you. We heard this in Shamayim. We could tell it to you. No, not interested. One time there was a Magid, one of these angels, comes to the Gaon Mivina a little bit frustrated. He says, I have Torah here I can give you. All you have to do is pay attention and listen. I'll tell you secrets. I'll tell you understandings, concepts in Torah that you never imagined. And the Gaon Mivina told him something very important. He says, I have no interest, zero interest in knowledge and hasagot and understandings of Torah that I did not work for. Because a person is not going to get the credit in Shamayim for knowing Torah, rather for working on Torah. And therefore, this is not something that's virtuous or something that I want to pursue because I have no interest in it whatsoever. My interest is to focus on the work of Torah and knowledge that came from Amelut B'Torah is what I'm interested in, and nothing less than that. That's an incredible idea that is so far removed from the world we live in. Today, it's because a lot of it is so superficial, it's about being able to show how much I know. Even people sometimes that are in learning, the style, the brand of Torah is not always, some places it is. Some places are very, very strong about these points, but other places is just about being able to show off how much you know. And that becomes like a sort of ideal, as opposed to understanding and working hard and developing deeper insights through your efforts and through your energies, and not just having it spoon-fed, because that's not the purpose. The purpose isn't knowing things, it's about working hard to know things. And that's the idea of the Torah. That's Tiyu Amirim B'Torah. So we see this Yesod, very critical Yesod, that Nitziv, he said that when he was a little boy, he was, maybe 8 years old, 9 years old. This story he said when he finished writing his Sefer Ha'amek She'ela. He wrote one of the greatest farim in his times, an incredible work of genius. And he was already, not when he was 9, this is many years later, but he was reflecting back to when he was 9 years old. He was about 50 at the time that he finished. He made a siyum. He made a whole party, a feast for all of the Rabbanim, all the Talmidei Chachamim. As the Gemara says, Avidna Yom HaTava LeRabbanan. When a person finishes a Masechet, he finishes something great, an accomplishment, he's supposed to make a Yom Tov to show appreciation. So he did. And he spoke and he said, I'm reflecting back when I was 9 years old, I was in the Cheder. And in the yeshiva that I was in, I overheard one night, as I came back home, my parents having a conversation. It was a conversation that our young boy is not doing well in yeshiva. The Rebbe is saying he's not paying attention, he's totally spaced out, he's not focused, he doesn't understand what's going on. And back then, it's a make it or break it world. It wasn't like today. You have a lot of freelancers today. But back then, either you make it or that's it, you're out. If you're not going to succeed in Rabbanut, you have to have a job, you could die if you don't have a job. Right? Parnasah was a question of pikuach nefesh. So the parents were discussing with each other. The Rebbe came to us again, and this is after a few chances that already they gave the young boy, and the Rebbe tried whatever he could do. The Rebbe comes to him and says he's not responding well to the learning. He's just not getting it. And they talked between themselves. They said, we have no choice. We have to send him to apprenticeship. He'll become a shoemaker. And that way, at least he'll have a parnasah. We'll take him out of the yeshiva. We'll put him in, make him a shoemaker. That he'll be able to support himself bechavod. He should have to go ahead and poor man knocking on people's doors. So they said that they made the decision. Now he, Baruch Hashem, overheard the conversation. He came running in, crying to his father and mother. No, I promise, give me another chance. Don't take me out of the cheder. I want to be in the yeshiva. I promise you that I will work so hard, and you'll see a marketable change. Remarkable change. So Be'emet, what happened was the parents said, all right, fine, we'll give you one more chance. And he went back and he worked very hard. He put in tremendous levels of energy and effort, and he started to see success. And the Rebbe reported back to them, something changed in him, everything's very different, and he started really developing, really growing, to the point that he became such a Torah scholar that he's known today. This is a story that happened 300 years ago, right? The Nitziv, you say the word the Nitziv any yeshiva, they'd be like, yeah, of course, the Netziv. He's a great man. He's a Gadol Hador, a leader of a generation. Unbelievable. And what did it all start from? It started from the fact that he decided as a young man to put in effort. And he said when he was at this siyum, he said, can you imagine what would have happened if I didn't overhear that conversation, I didn't make the decision? I would have gone up as a shoemaker. I would have been a shoemaker, and I would have been Yarei Shamayim. I would have been God-fearing. I would have said Kriyat Shema. I would have learned every single night, for sure. But I would have gone up to Shamayim and thought to myself, I lived a great life. I kept Torah, I kept mitzvot, I got married, I had children, Baruch Hashem. And Shamayim, they're saying to me, where's the Ha'amek Davar? Where's your Sefer? He said, what Sefer? What are you talking about? I'm a simple Jew. No. You had a Sefer you were capable of making. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm a shoemaker. And then they would replay the whole events of my life and how things could have played out. And Baruch Hashem, that one decision a person makes can affect his whole entire life. We don't know what we're capable of until we actually put in that effort. It's a major effort that can produce major results. But in Shamayim, we certainly don't want that kind of a moment where they say, where is the chibur? Where is the insights? Where is the chesed you would have otherwise done? Where is and all these, fill in the blank. It could be every person's different. Not every person is going to be the Noda B'Yehuda and the Netziv and these great people. But there's going to be a lot of accomplishments where we're lackadaisical, where we're not putting in the effort, we could end up losing out a tremendous. And that's the idea of Adam le'amal yulad. The hard work that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is expecting of us is not knowledge and Torah, not gift, high IQ. He couldn't care less. Hashem knows who he gave a high IQ to and who he didn't. That's not what interests HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Adam le'amal yulad. It's the hard work that we put in, everyone based on their own level. Alevai, there was such a way. It's not possible for a Rebbe to do this, but if there was such a way for a Rebbe to grade every student based on his capabilities and to give an Aleph plus to a student that maybe got a 40 on the test, but you know what? I remember I had a classmate, I'll never forget this. My classmate came from, we called them phobes. What's phobes? Fresh off the boat. Rashi Tevot. Why? They basically came from all over the Middle East, and like they're fresh off the boat. They barely know anything about America, certainly not about the culture. Maybe they speak English, yeah, but pretty much like a very different mentality. And especially someone who's never been exposed to Torah and is starting from nothing. So there was one fellow in the class, I won't forget this. He literally didn't know anything. You open up a Gemara, he's like, every word, what does it mean? What is Ashi? No, Ashi is the name. Rav Ashi. Oh, Rav. I didn't know what Rav meant. And he's writing down every single test. It would be like he would go over to the best test takers, the ones that would always get straight A's and everything else. He would always go over to them and he'd be asking questions. What's this? What's that? And constantly there was like this person was like totally fixated on making sure that he'd do as much as he can. What would he get on his test? Like 30s and 40s. Like nothing. You'd fail every test. But every single grade, that Rebbe, Tavo alav beracha, give him straight A's in the class. Why? I don't care what you get on your grades. I see how hard you're working. You're getting straight A's in my class. This is a Torah class. This is not a science class. It's a Torah class. I see your hard work. I'm going to give you straight A's. So that's the system of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem doesn't care. The guy doesn't know how to read a Gemara, but he's putting in the tremendous effort in how to do it. He is the Netziv. That's it. He's the Netziv. For himself, he did what the Netziv is able to do. So that's an incredible accomplishment that a person is able to do. Now, Rabotai, one of the highlights of this parasha that I think is extremely relevant in every second of our lives, this mitzvah called Velo tonu ish et amito ve'yareta me'elohecha ki ani Adonai Elohechem. So 2 points here. What's the mitzvah Velo tonu ish amito? So there's really 2 elements to this mitzvah. It's called ona'ah. Ona'ah means causing pain. Now, it could be interpreted in 2 different ways. Financial pain, meaning a person who overcharges, who tells you have price gouging, what they call today, where you have an object. He's selling a basketball, and the basketball is supposed to cost $15, $20, but he knows this guy, I could pull him a fast one on him. He doesn't know prices, he doesn't know anything. I could charge him $40. He's been learning in yeshiva all day. What does he know about prices of basketball? I'll charge him $40. It's a $20 basketball, I'm going to charge him $40. Or nah, that is asur to do in business. To go ahead and to price gouge is asur to do in business. The Torah prohibits it. But there's a second ona, and this is how Rashi explains the pasuk is not talking about money. This is kan he's here, says Rashi, al onaat devarim, that a person, what he speaks, can be called ona when a Jew says something to another Jew and causes him pain. Not necessarily embarrassment of others. He's not embarrassing him in front of others. Just between the two of them, they're having a conversation, and he says something that's not exactly so nice. That is called onad devarim. He just violated a Torah violation by saying things to him that hurt his feeling. Now, a lot of times what could happen is a person mistakenly, he didn't know, it's very innocent. It could happen that he didn't realize that this person was maybe a convert, and he was mentioning about conversions and different things, and maybe he hurt his feeling without knowing about it. So if it was done unintentionally and without knowledge of the circumstance, or sometimes you say something and you really mean it in a positive way, but the way it comes out or the way it was understood or translated was taken in a different direction. And in those cases, Bemit, he didn't violate. Why? Because his intent was right. This is why the pasuk says, Ve'yareta me'elohecha. Because who's going to determine if something's onah? Sometimes people won't be able to determine. The onlooker will think, oh, that was vicious. And he doesn't realize, he meant it innocently. He didn't realize that it was going to be offensive to the other person. Ve'yareta me'elohecha means, I am Hashem, I know what the person's intent was, and I will know if he's guilty or he's not guilty. The person could lie all day, but Hashem knows the truth. That's ve'yareta me'elohecha. But let me give you some idea so that there's an understanding of the emphasis here. So, let's say ona'at devarim applies, this is the toughest one, to a wife. When a husband doesn't talk respectfully or appropriately or with the proper honor to his wife, every single time he hurts her, he's violating ona'at devarim. You know how many times a person who's not careful could violate ona'at devarim on an hourly basis with a conversation with his wife? He could be violating 15, 20 times easily on a daily. Now, Behukotai, what does it mean to violate? It means that it's no different in its level of prohibition from going to the local McDonald's and taking a bite out of their cheeseburger. It's the same level, right? This is a lav, that's a lav. Same level of prohibition. So, Behukotai, such a serious prohibition with words. He's hurting his wife's feelings. You know what? You don't know how to keep things clean. He just goes over to his wife. He says, you don't know how to keep a house organized. You know what you just did? You achieved a serious violation of ona'at devarim. He didn't mean it harmfully. You should know better. You're her husband. It's not some stranger. You know it's going to hurt her feelings. That's ona'at devarim. Such serious things that a person can be violating with just the power of his words. It goes further than that. This is something that most people don't even anticipate is ona'at devarim. Let's say I go over to someone and I start overpraising him. I overpraise him. You're so generous. You're so kind, unbelievably. That's also ona'at devarim. If it's way beyond, sometimes it's a little bit more than the usual, a little bit exaggeration, tov, that's a different story. But if it's like very, very overhyped, that's also ona'at devarim. He's going to feel bad. He's going to feel deficient, like this is not shayach. It's not really true. He's just ridiculing me. It's just a joke. And that's an example of ona'at devarim that a person can backhandedly cause his friend a lot of pain without even realizing that he's violating this prohibition. So being marbeh b'shivcho, to increase and to over-compliment, is also not an appropriate thing from the lens of the Torah. Another example of ona'at devarim, a person walks into the store and he goes over to the store owner and he says, how much does this cost? And he has zero intent of buying it. He doesn't want to buy it. He just wants to know how much it costs. Curiosity. That's a violation of ona'at devarim. How is that a violation? So there's two reasons. Two reasons brought down. Sometimes one reason will apply, sometimes one reason won't apply. But the reason number one, there could be onlookers. And if they see that you're interested in a certain product, they might, and this is only going to apply obviously if there's one of them, then they're going to say, oh, he's already pursuing that product, so I'm not going to pursue it. So he's going to back off of pursuing it. And then the owner could end up losing because you're really not interested in buying. If you were interested in buying, okay, so you could haggle, you can ask, you can, of course, question. That's part of business. But if he's not interested in buying, he's just asking, you might cause a different person to look somewhere else. So look elsewhere. He's not going to go and he's going to leave that product alone. So you could cause potentially the loss of money. But other than that, you could cause pain. Ona'at devarim is not about that per se. The ona'at devarim is that the owner is going to get his hopes up. Oh, he's interested in buying it. And in the meantime, you're not interested in buying it. That's onat dvarim. You're going to disappoint him that he's going to be excited that you want to buy his product, and really you have no interest in buying. That is called onat dvarim. You're misleading him in such a way that it causes the person pain. So there's another very fine example, but it's a Torah violation of a person committing mamash onat dvarim. It doesn't end there. Wait, a few more things. For example, a person who looks at his friend, he's good friends with him, and he remembers what that guy did in high school. He says, you know, it's wonderful, but you don't ever forget where you started from. Don't forget the times that you were like this. Don't forget the times that a person who says that about somebody else, that's also a violation. To remind someone of his past sins is a violation of onat dvarim, because he's causing him pain. What are you bringing in his past for? Just because that's what he was in the past? So all of a sudden, sometimes also this is something that husbands have to be careful about. Their wives, oh yeah, you remember back then, you weren't exactly the most religious person on the block, right? And those are painful things. And the person did tshuva. What are you doing? You're not allowed to do that. The Gemara says something very interesting. The Bemet, there was a whole scenario. The Poskim talk about this. There was a conversation. The Gemara in Baba Mitzvah brings this down between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. There's a conversation. Rish Lakish was originally, the Gemara says the story, he was the head robber. He was like the head mafioso man. And he had a whole... he passed away, so we're allowed to say it. The Gemara says it also. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to mention his past, right? But this is for the sake of Torah, you're allowed to mention it. As the Gemara mentioned it. So it says that he was a robber. And one time he saw Rabbi Yochanan from a distance. Now, Rabbi Yochanan was one of the most beautiful people in the world. He had the beauty of Yerushalayim. It was the last remnants of the beauty of Yerushalayim was Rabbi Yochanan. There's a glow to him. He was very handsome. So at a distance, you can't really tell man, woman. You just see a figure. And Rish Lakish thought it was a woman. From the beauty of Rabbi Yochanan, he thought it was a woman. So he saw from a distance, and it was Rabbi Yochanan was in the river. So he jumped like a far distance, and he made it all the way to Rabbi Yochanan in like basically in one jump. He was an incredible athlete. Rabbi Yochanan looks at him, and obviously he realizes it's a big rabbi. It's not a woman at all. And Rabbi Yochanan looks at him and says, "Chelecha leoraita." Wow, what strength! Your strength should be used for Torah. And he says, "Yofiecha lenashim." Your beauty should be for women. This is not a beauty for men. This is a beauty that should be reserved for women. He says, "I have a sister that's more beautiful than me. If you commit yourself to Torah right now, except this is mamash like the first version of arachim." This is arachim. Remember arachim? How they used to bring people closer. So Rabbi Yochanan was a walking arachim. He says, you're going to go ahead and you be chozer b'shvei. He saw in him very strong powers of Torah. He says, you take upon yourself the yoke of Torah. Forget all this robbing and everything else. Take upon yourself, I'm going to have my sister married to you. My word. And he says, beseder. And he agreed. And Bemet, he took upon himself the yoke of Torah in a very strong way. He married his sister. Sisu v'simchu, Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish is known to be the highest pair of Torah, like the back and forths of Rabbi Yochanan, Rish Lakish, conversations, Gemarot, all the incredible Masechtot and the Torah that emerged from this chavruta that they had. Until one day what happened was they were discussing different weapons, like swords and spears, as the question was, when is the Gemar Melachtan? When is the last work, the last part that it's already considered an instrument and it could become tameh and it can go ahead and be considered makeh b'patish on Shabbat and the various halachot. So Rabbi Yochanan had an opinion, and his opinion was when you take it out of the fire, and Rish Lakish, no, when you clean it with water at the end. Rish Lakish argued. So Rabbi Yochanan went and said to him, listim b'listiyutai yada, that a person who's in the industry knows his industry really well. And basically, it was very, so Rish Lakish heard those words, he was very offended. He was hurt by it. Maya hanilech. What if, like, over there, what accomplishment did I have that over there they used to call me the leader, and now also I'm called Rabbi. I'm also called the leader. What did I gain from this? And he was upset, a little bit hurt by Rabbi Yochanan. And Rabbi Yochanan was actually hurt back because what Rish Lakish said to Rabbi Yochanan was, "My ahani lecha," like what gain did I have by joining Torah? I had whatever I had back then. I could have had it It's like I didn't get anything. So Be'emet, the Gemara says that Rabbi Yochanan was offended, Rish Lakish was a bit offended, but Rish Lakish ended up being harmed from that conversation. And here, if you look at the Mefarshim, they say what you see on the surface of the Gemara is not really what was happening. There were other things going on. That Rabbi Yochanan was not deriding Rish Lakish, because really it's asur to say that. It's asur to say, oh, he used to be a robber. That's exactly what we're talking about in Devarim. So what he meant to say, what he was actually saying, is that, of course, if you have a disagreement with me, because you're a bigger expert than me on this, the halakha follows you. Meaning it was really a practical point. It wasn't to be offensive. The point was to say that you are more right than I am because you have a better experience on this matter. And that was his point. But Rish Lakish didn't see it that way. He didn't understand it that way. And therefore he thought that Rabbi Yochanan was just simply ridiculing him for being a robber back in his past, and therefore he's like nullifying his position. Not that he was accepting, he was nullifying his position. So then Rish Lakish responded out of pain, and that was unjustified, the way that Rish Lakish responded to Rabbi Yochanan. And therefore, what resulted from it is actually both of them ended up dying. Look how serious it is. Because Rish Lakish died because Rabbi Yochanan was the Rav, and you can't speak that way to the Rav. So then Rish Lakish passed away. Purely because of that conversation. The Gemara says that was the reason that Rish Lakish passed away. So sad. And then Rabbi Yochanan ended up passing away because he lost Rish Lakish. And he couldn't learn, without Rish Lakish, he couldn't learn. It didn't matter who else was there. All the other Chachamim were not on the level of Rish Lakish. There was no back and forth. Oh Chavruta, oh Mituta, it was no point of him living. He passed away also. We lost two great tzaddikim, what? On account of words. And there it was misunderstanding of words. It wasn't even intentional. Do you imagine how much damage it could be if a person is not careful and is with his onad devarim and how he goes out and he speaks? Even to something else. Let's say sometimes you have a more religious onad devarim. You could call it that. What's a religious onad devarim? A person, he wants to go ahead and he really wants to tell the person off. So he knows that he had a bad experience in his life. Had something happen to him in his life. So he says, you know why this happened to you? This happened to you because of your sins. If you didn't have sins, it wouldn't have ever happened to you. Now, Rabotai, you'd say, that's pretty good. He's right. No? Isn't he right? Nothing happens to a person without avera. And yisurim belo het. Even if something is right, to tell that to a person and to say to him, because of your sins you're suffering, that's exactly what the friends of Iyov did to Iyov. They say, your suffering is because of your averot. That's why you're suffering. And the Gemara says a person who does that is violating onat devarim. You're not allowed to do that. This is a big one because a lot of times, again, back to the husband and wives, the husband sometimes could be a zealot or the wife could be a zealot. It could work both ways. And the zealous husband sees his wife went ahead and fell down. That's because you're not dressed sanua. So you went ahead and you fell down. You see that? That's what happens when you're off tzniut. And he tells her, that's onad devarim. He violated the halakha of onad devarim. You're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to say that. Why? You're violating onad devarim. Although there is a question on this from the Gemara in Masechet Berachot, is the Gemara tells us in Berachot Daf He that Rav Huna lost 400 barrels of wine. He had 400 barrels stored, and they all turned into vinegar. They soured, meaning he lost a lot of money. And he realized that it doesn't happen without any reason. He goes over to the Chachamim. The Chachamim console him for his major loss, right? It's a big loss. And he says to them, does anybody know of anything that I possibly could have done? And they said back to him, they told him, you should look into your actions. They told him, you should look into your actions, Bimit. And he says, but my actions, I didn't find anything in my actions. I Bimit don't see anything wrong. I tried to look, I couldn't find anything. So they told him, well, how did you act with your business partner? He had a sharecropper. And they basically explained to him that, look, you stole from the sharecropper, you weren't paying him. So the Kadosh Baruch Hu did this to you. And then he says, but he stole from me too. They said, that's nice that he stole from you. So you take him to Beit Din. But it doesn't mean you have a right to steal from him. You have to give him what he's owed and then take him to court for anything that he stole from you. And therefore the Chachamim criticized him. Be'emet, he returned the items that he stole. He was supposed to give him the branches of the wine. Shh. He was supposed to give him the branches of the wine. Quiet. Supposed to give him the branches, and he went ahead and instead of, before he didn't, now he did. He gave him the branches. All of a sudden his vinegar became expensive or it changed back to wine. The Gemara says two different opinions of what went ahead and happened. So we see that the Chachamim did tell Rav Huna, hey buddy, you got to look into your actions. So what's the difference between the two cases? The difference is, what is your intention? If you're genuine and you're L'Shem Shamayim and you really could make a difference, meaning they were doing it tachlis. It wasn't just to go ahead and say, your sins are causing this. Because you're a Rasha, because you're Mehalel Shabbat, all these terrible things are happening to you. If a person says that just to kind of ridicule the man and to deride him, he's violating Onat Devarim. If he's saying it for purposes, no. You lost those barrels because you stole from the sharecropper, you stole from the power, give him back. Meaning he's doing it at To'eret, he's not doing it to hit him. He's doing it because he knows that he could get him to do teshuvah as a result of it. That's a different story. So then that would be allowed. So it really just depends on the intent of the person. But again, that's a concept that's potentially ona'at devarim if a person doesn't do it with the right mindset. Even asking somebody, this is a big one for Rabbanim. I have to be careful with this too sometimes. If you know somebody doesn't know something and you ask him about dvar chokhmah, what's the halacha in this case? And he points to someone. And you know they don't know the halacha. That's ona'at devarim. I remember sometimes there would be Rabbanim it happened, I remember as a student it happened sometimes that there was a Rebbe that would go over, what do you think the answer is? And then the student wouldn't know. And the Rebbe would feel very bad. He'd be like, I really thought he knew. I didn't think he wouldn't know. That's not a violation of ona'at devarim. The Rebbe thought that he was gonna get it right, and it happens to be the student was spaced out, wasn't paying attention, and he didn't know the answer. It's not a violation of ona'at devarim. But if he knows ahead of time that he doesn't know the answer, and he says, what's the answer to this question? And he doesn't know. That's ona'at devarim. You caused him pain. You caused him to feel bad. But everybody else is now going to be more inspired. It doesn't make a difference. You caused him pain. So you're not allowed to do that. Again, lo tonu ish et amito, violation. Even if it's l'shem shamayim. Look at Yaakov Avinu. When Rachel went ahead and she asked Yaakov, hava livanim, I need children, I want children. Why is only Rachel have children? Bilhah has children, I also want children. What does Yaakov Avinu say? Hatachat Elokim anochi asher mana mimech peri baten. Am I in the place of Hashem, under Hashem, that I prevented you to have children? He says to her, what do you want from me? Go pray. Now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was not happy with Yaakov Avinu. He says, Kach onim et ha'me'ikot, people that are in pain. This is how you answer them? That's an answer that you answer someone who's in pain? Now, on the one hand, you could say, what's the truth, really? Rachel, the Midrash says, when she heard those words from Yaakov, it hurt her. Definitely hurt her. But she said, if he's not going to pray for me, I have to pray for myself. And she prayed really hard from a place of pain. And that tefillah was so powerful that she ended up being answered as a result of that tefillah. And she had Yosef. That's what gave birth to Yosef. That tefillah, as resulted by Yaakov Avinu. So if you think about it, Yaakov Avinu did something great. He caused that Rachel should pray that she should have children. So what's wrong? The answer is, he was still punished. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you answered Rachel in such a fashion, chayecha, that your children will bow down before her children. And that's what happened. All of the tribes bowed down to Yosef. So Be'emet, but what's the crime? What did he do wrong? This is not how you speak. But it's L'Shem Shamayim, so she should pray. I have children. She doesn't have children. She needs to pray. Yes, but there's a way to do things. And that's not the right way. So it's called ona'at devarim. It's the same thing we find by Hannah and Penina. Penina L'Shem Shamayim nitkavena. Penina went ahead and she had the intent. Hannah didn't have children. Penina had 5 children. She was good. So she caused her pain. She caused Hannah pain because she knew that only a powerful tefillah would change her gzera. Not because she didn't like her, because she loved her. Because she wanted to see her with children. She said, oh, what are you doing today? I have to prepare lunches for my kids. What are you doing today? And she would cause her pain because she knew that pain is going to bring out the best tefillah. And Be'emet, the tefillah of Hannah was so powerful that we learn today, to the very day and age, 2,000, 3,000 years later, we learn how to pray from Hannah. How did she get to that level? Directly because of Penina. That being true, that Penina was L'Shem Shamayim. How many people does the Torah say that they were L'Shem Shamayim? How many people? By Penina it says that she was L'Shem Shamayim. She has a stamp of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that she was actually L'Shem Shamayim. And you know what happened? She lost her 5 children. All 5 of her children died. Why? Because you can't speak this way. You can't speak this way. You caused her ona'at devarim. But I intended for her. I wanted her to have a child. I wanted her to be like me. Not this way. It's not your job. It's not your purpose. Lo tonu ish et amito. How far this goes, this idea. So certainly to call somebody, oh, you have an ugly nose. You have, your face does not look pretty. Oh, disgusting hair. Look at his hair. It's terrible. right? All of that would be in the category, not pointing to anybody, right? All of that would be in the category of ona'at devarim, and that is asur to do. So it's causing someone pain, physical pain. Sometimes, he has a low IQ. He's a low IQ person. That's also ona'at devarim, to speak that way. A person is not allowed to speak that way. So even if he's doing it to cause him to pray better or to all these other things, all of this is asur to do. It's very important to be careful. That's the mitzvah of lo tonu. Yes, question.
If Rav wants to engage the student, he knows you're not paying attention. He says, "What's the next word?" Thus, he knows the child does not know the next word in order to get him to learn further.
So yes, there is a concept that would be allowed because he's doing it to be mechanech the child. As the story goes with the Hazon Ish, that one time there was somebody that said something not so nice to a child, and the Hazon Ish was very upset. He says, Lo tonu applies even to children. You cannot speak, not just to an adult, to a child. You have to respect him, and you have to treat him with the respect. And you can't go ahead and embarrass him. You don't respect him like you have to respect an adult, but you can't embarrass him, and you can't cause him pain just because it's a child. In some ways it's worse, because an adult could be mochel. He could forgive. A child is lav b'nei mechila ninhu. In order for a child to forgive, you have to wait until he's bar mitzvah. And then you have to ask him for forgiveness. He can't forgive. He doesn't have the capacity of forgiveness. So even if he says he forgives, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't count as forgiveness. You have to wait until he's bar mitzvah, and then you have to ask mechila. So it's even worse. A person has to be even more careful. So the Gemara says, pigi'atan ra'ah. Children is pigi'atan ra'ah. Why? Because you encounter them, it's a lose-lose. You can't win. They offend you, they don't get punished. You offend them, you get punished. So you have to be careful with kids. But why was I saying this story? Because that's true. If it's some stranger, if it's the Rebbe or the father, he has a responsibility. As mitzvat chinuch dictates that he has the authority and responsibility to discipline. So he has to do it sensitively, but sometimes that would be a warranted thing. If he wants the child, he knows he needs to put his finger on the place, and he asks him such a question to get him to be in line, and he's the Rebbe. He's entitled to do that. That's a very different concept, but certainly outside of that context, that would not be allowed to be done. So those are a few examples of things to be careful about, and this is an amazing, amazing parasha with very, very profound lessons in the parasha. We have to be so careful with the words that come out. We cannot be running with no filter. We have to make sure that the mind is filtering what we're saying, and we have to train ourselves. So you start small. You train yourself for a half hour a day, then you move on to an hour, but you have to train yourself to cross-examine every word that comes out of our mouth and to make sure that we're not offending. If we start paying attention, we'll notice how many times we are potentially violating lo tonu. It's actually frightening, but it's a good way to heal from this, is to pay attention and to realize how easy it is to violate this, and then hopefully to back away from it and to wean ourselves off this concept that is very common in America, unfortunately. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen.